All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're fundamentally shifting how we approach conflict by exploring some truly groundbreaking concepts from the founders of the Harvard Negotiation Project. Look, if you've ever walked away from a disagreement feeling frustrated or maybe felt like you had to just give up way too much to keep the peace, this is absolutely for you. We're going to move completely away from that combative winning versus losing mindset that traps so many of us, and instead look at a framework designed to get you what you want without destroying your relationships in the process.
Now, think about this question for a second. What's really interesting here is that if you find yourself asking who is winning during a negotiation, you have literally already lost. The source material is totally adamant about this. Negotiation is not about winning or losing, and it is definitely not about insisting on your way or my way. When we frame a discussion as this zero-sum battle where someone has to lose for the other person to win, we completely blind ourselves to the actual, incredibly obvious solutions sitting right in front of us.
And this leads us to a massive myth, the 50-50 compromise. We are all taught that splitting something right down the middle is the ultimate standard of fairness, right? Well, actually, using the brilliant analogy from the text of two kids splitting an orange, we can clearly see why this fails. Imagine a parent takes a knife, cuts an orange perfectly in half and hands it over. One kid eats the fruit and tosses the peel. The other kid takes their half, uses the peel to bake a cake, and throws the fruit in the trash. If the parent had simply asked why they wanted the orange in the first place, both kids could have gotten 100% of what they wanted, all the fruit for one, all the peel for the other. Because of that 50-50 split, they both totally missed out on a complete win.
So, to avoid these trap compromises where everyone leaves value on the table, we're going to unpack the Harvard Negotiation Project's four-step framework, focusing on interests, using fair standards, creating mutual gain options, separating the people, and finally deploying advanced tactics to defend yourself. Let's jump right into the first step.
Step 1. Focus on interests. We need to look beneath the surface.
So a position is basically your rigid demand, but your interest, that's your hidden underlying need. This is exactly where most people get stuck. They dig their heels in on a specific demand, and the whole conversation just evolves into a massive tug-of-war. To get past this, we have to look deeper. Think of two guys arguing in a library. One takes the rigid position of demanding a window be open. The other takes the rigid position of demanding it be closed. If they just argue those positions, they're completely stuck. But then the librarian walks in and uncovers their actual interests. The first guy just wants fresh air. The second guy just wants to stop the wind from blowing his papers all over the place. So the librarian goes to the next room and opens a window there, bringing in the fresh air without creating a draft. You've always got to ask why to uncover those hidden needs. Moving on to step 2, use fair standards. Rely on objective criteria. Look, clashes are going to happen. It's totally inevitable. But when they do, you really shouldn't just argue back and forth based on personal opinions or who can shout the loudest. Let's say you're dealing with a house construction dispute. If you think your foundation needs to be 5 feet deep and your contractor insists on 2 feet, you can't just compromise at 3.5 feet. That is literally how a house collapses. Instead, you step outside of your own biases. You ask for the government standard specifications for your specific soil conditions. By relying on market prices, legal requirements, or expert opinions, you instantly turn a stubborn standoff into a shared search for a fair, objective standard. Which brings us to step 3, mutual gain options. It is time to invent creative solutions. You know, it's kind of wild, but differences actually aren't the enemy. They are the secret sauce for creative solutions. I mean, the perfect solution with the orange was only possible because each side wanted a completely different part of the fruit. To invent these options, you need to hold dedicated brainstorming sessions using some very specific rules. You choose your participants, change up the environment to make things a bit more relaxed, and clearly define your purpose. But the absolute golden rule here, do not judge early. You have to separate the stage of inventing ideas from the stage of evaluating them. Let the ideas flow freely, and only after you have a huge list do you start picking the best ones to improve on. Okay, step 4, separate the people. You must be soft on the person but hard on the problem. Before you even start negotiating, try visualizing a literal vertical line completely splitting the human being in their ego away from the actual issue you're trying to solve. We're dealing with human beings here, people who feel threatened, who have emotions, and who misinterpret things constantly. You have to be soft on the person by complimenting them and showing you genuinely appreciate their effort. But you must remain incredibly hard on the problem. Often we want to be nice, so we're soft on the person, but then we end up being soft on the problem too, and we don't get what we need. Or worse, we're hard on the problem, but we attack the person and completely destroy the relationship.
Always put the person first and the problem second. And here is a statistic from the source material that absolutely blew my mind. Simply taking a little time to build a relationship and get to know the other side before you start negotiating increases your success rate by 25 to 30%. Arrive a few minutes early, chat with them, learn what makes them tick. Negotiating with someone you actually have a rapport with is infinitely easier than going head-to-head with a total stranger.
So, what happens when things go sideways? Step 5, advanced tactics. Defending against the unfair. Everything we've covered so far sounds amazing, assuming everyone is acting in good faith. But what if they just refuse to play fair? What if they use pressure tricks or lie to you? If they're using a classic pressure tactic, like the good cop, bad cop routine, your absolute best defense is to just name it. Call it out directly. You just say, hey, it seems like you two are playing good cop, bad cop. Do you need a minute to get on the same page? By merely naming the tactic out loud, you instantly neutralize its power. You're focusing on the problem without making a personal attack, and you're letting them know their little trick isn't going to work on you.
Now, what if they just have way more power than you? In that case, you have to establish your BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Think about walking into a salary negotiation. If you have absolutely no other job offers, you feel pretty powerless, right? But imagine walking into that exact same room already holding 2 other incredible offers. Your entire posture completely changes. The ability to easily walk away is your ultimate superpower in any room. Never negotiate blindly. Figure out your BATNA before you ever sit down. And if things get super heated and they start launching personal attacks against your ideas, whatever you do, don't push back. If you push, they just push back harder and you're stuck in a loop. Instead, use what's called negotiation jujitsu. Just like the actual martial art, you don't meet their aggressive force head-on. You sidestep it and you redirect that hostile energy right back towards solving the problem at hand. So how do you actually pull these jujitsu moves off? First, look behind their aggressive position and ask them why they feel that way. Second, and this is a brilliant psychological trick, ask for their advice. Say, if you were me in this exact situation, what would you do? This literally forces them to mentally put themselves in your shoes, transforming their attack into a collaborative brainstorming session. And finally, actively invite their criticism. Ask them what specifically is wrong with your idea so you can dig down and uncover those hidden interests. This all reminds me of a really beautiful story from 1964. An American father and his 12-year-old son were playing frisbee in Hyde Park, London. At the time, barely anyone in England had ever even seen a frisbee. A bystander stood there watching them for 15 minutes, finally walked up and asked, "So, who's winning?" When it comes to negotiations, asking who's winning is just like asking who's winning in a marriage. It reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of an activity that is designed purely for mutual benefit and shared success. So take these 4 steps and these advanced tactics into your next boardroom meeting, your next performance review, or even just a disagreement in your living room. Focus on interests, use fair standards, invent mutual options, and separate the people from the problem. I'll leave you with this one thought to reflect on. The next time you face a conflict, are you going to fight a zero-sum battle just to win? Or will you collaborate to actually solve the problem? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really challenge you to put these tools into practice today.